This is a story which may be the most important story you'll ever hear. It's the most important spiritual story you'll ever hear, right? And it's a story of a king who had 3 questions. Okay, there was a king, and one day he woke up and somewhere these 3 questions popped into his head. And the first question was, what's the most important time? The second question was, who is the most important person? And the third question, what's the most important thing to do? Have any of you heard the story? It's a great story, alright? So, he went and asked his ministers, because that's the wisest people he knew. So what's the most important time? So he said, oh Lord, when you became the king, that's the most important time, right? What's the most important person? You're the most important person, because you're the king, right? What's the most important thing to do? Oh, please expand your kingdom. That's the most important thing to do. But the answers didn't quite satisfy him. No, I want, these answers aren't quite. And the ministers are very smart. They know that if their answers are not satisfying the king, their jobs are in danger. Because he's going to get some other minister, right? So they're very smart. They say, the chief minister goes and says, it seems you're not satisfied with our answers. Why don't you go to the wise man who lives on the edge of the kingdom? He lives on a mountain. Maybe he can answer your question. These seem to be deeper questions, right? These are not worldly questions. So the king says, good idea, let me go. So next day, he goes along with 20 soldiers on horseback. It's a fairly big kingdom, so it takes like half a day to get there, right? And they come to the base of the mountain, and the king says, it's not suitable to meet the sage with many soldiers. Let me go alone. So he tells soldiers, you guys stay here. I'll go and meet the sage. But because it's the edge of the kingdom, and there may be dangers from the next kingdom, he takes a sword along. Anyway, he decides to climb up the mountain. And he thinks he'll quickly go up, ask, and come down. Now he doesn't realize he's out of shape. Because he's the king, right? So he's quite tired. By the time he walks up, it takes him 2-3 hours. And he's totally out of breath. Let me ask my questions and go home. And he goes to find there's a cave, and there's a man sitting in meditation. It's not suitable to disturb someone who's meditating. Let me just sit and let him finish his meditation. So he sits to a side. By now it's evening time. Once he gets up, I'll ask my questions. Half an hour goes, 1 hour goes, 2 hours, 3 hours, this man is not going to get up over. So now what do I do? It's getting dark now. So he can just either leave, or he said, no, I've come all the way, let's spend the night. So he loosens his turban, he puts it down, he takes out his sword, puts it down, he goes to sleep. Wakes up in the morning with beautiful bird song and beautiful sunlight streaming into that cave. And you know how fresh it is to wake up in the top of a mountain. He gets up, rubs his eyes to see the old man who's not there. Hey, what happened? Where's he gone? So he gets up and walks out. And he's amazed to see that from that mountain he can see his whole kingdom. So he goes to the edge of the cliff, and what a glorious sight to see his whole beautiful kingdom. You know what? Every morning he wakes up in his palace, the first thing he gets is bad news. He gets a newspaper, all his spies come and tell him what the wrong things are going on. Tension, tension, tension. But as he's standing here on the mountain, he gets to see this beautiful kingdom, and suddenly, his heart just connects and says, this is why I'm a king, to serve all these people. And he reconnects with his original intention of being a king. And just then, as he's standing on the edge of the cliff, he feels someone patting him on the shoulder. He turns around, what's going on? The old man is standing there, the old sage. He has the king's sword in his hand, pointing at his neck. And he's looking deeply into the king's eyes. And he says, King, tell me, what's the most important time? Who is the most important person? What's the most important thing to do? And as the king is standing there, behind him is the cliff. In front of him is a sword. And these 3 questions hit him. As he's looking into that sage's eyes, a twinkle comes in his eyes. And the sage realizes, this man has got it. So he puts the sword down. He says, now king, you can go and rule your kingdom. And he goes back to his hut and he starts to meditate. His cave and he starts to meditate. That's the story. So now you've got to tell me the answers, right? What, if you were the king and you were standing there and you had these 3 questions, and the sage asks you, what's the most important time? What will you say? What's the most important time? What is it?
Time I believe.
Huh?
No, time is alive.
The time I'm alive. What else? Yeah? Now.
Now.
Right?
Right now.
It's now. So all our concepts about time, past, future, all that dissolves in the moment. There's only the now. All the thoughts vanish when he put the sword to his neck. My goodness, there's only this moment. There is no other moment. As we are standing, no, it's not the story, okay? It's your life right now. So there is only the now. Everything else is a story that we tell. Right? And the quality of the story is the quality of your life. So there is only this now here. The next question, Who is the most important person? Tell me.
The
What's
guy
the answer?
holding the sword.
The guy. The guy is holding the sword. What is your answer?
Yourself.
Yourself. Right?
Yourself.
And so we get these two answers. And I ask this to be gathering. And I say, what's the most? And I always get these two answers. It's yourself or it's the one in front of you. And that's exactly right. But you know what happens? We get it upside down. So when we are with somebody, you know what? We are preoccupied with ourselves. It happens to all of us. It happens to me also. Has it happened? Someone is talking to you, but you're lost in your own thoughts. And you're planning what you're going to say. So when you're with someone, you're restless because you want to be on your own and do your own thing. Right? And when you're on your own, doing your own thing, then you worry about other people. Is it true? When we're on our own, we start worrying about our mother, our father, our children, our wife, our work and everything else. So we can't be alone and we can't be with people. When we're with people, we're not with them. And when we're alone, we're not with ourselves. So we haven't learned to be with the person. And so the answer he got was, the person you're with. So when I'm with you, you are the most important person in the whole world at that point of time. But you know what? When I'm with myself, I'm the most important person at that point of time. And if I'm doing something, there's some activity I'm doing, then that activity is the most important activity in the whole world. It could even be cutting vegetables. Doesn't matter what it is. Right? So the most important time is now. The most important person is the one you're with. Third question. This is an interesting one. What's the most important thing to do? What answer are you getting?
What do you like to do most?
What you like to do, alright. What else? What's the most important thing to do? Because you can't always do what you like to do, can you? Right? Is it true? We can't always do what we love to do. What's the most important thing to do? So you have to stand on the cliff for that, isn't it? You're not going to get the answer. So the answer that he got, the most important thing to do, as he was standing, remember before the man came, he just felt this tremendous love and connection with his kingdom. The most important thing to do is to care, is to be loving. That's what he got. The most important time is now. The most important person is the one you're with. The most important thing to do is to care, is to be loving. Have any of you heard of an author called Aldous Huxley? You've heard of him? Very, very famous philosopher. He's passed away now. But very, very famous philosopher of about 30, 40 years back. Right? He wrote many books. One of the most famous books he wrote, popular bestseller, was called The Perennial Wisdom. But extremely well-read person. Right? And this person was known by many people to be a walking encyclopedia. You could call him on stage and ask him on just about any subject on the planet. You could talk about archaeology, biology, nuclear physics, anything. He'd talk about it with great elegance. Highly knowledgeable person. Now when this person was on his deathbed, someone went up to him and said, Mr. Huxley, you're so highly knowledgeable and you're in the last stage of your life. Tell us with all your wisdom, what is your teaching for all of us? You've studied just about everything in the world. What is your teaching for us? So he smiled and he said, it's kind of embarrassing. But the answer is, just be a little more kind. One of the most intelligent, well-educated people on the planet says, the answer that he's got at the end of it all is, just be a little more kind to the people in your life. They asked Dalai Lama, and he says, my religion is kindness. My religion is kindness. Not so much Buddhism and Daitism, and these are all secondary things. Right? It's so funny, if you look at history, you find there has been more blood spilled in the name of religion than on any other thing on the planet. And every single religion is teaching love and tolerance and patience, and look at that, and you fight, right? So instead of making religion what you believe in, make love and kindness and these qualities what you believe in. That's what's really important. So I believe that's the most important spiritual story you'll ever hear. Why? Because the most important thing to do is to live in the present moment. The most important person is the one you're with. And the most important thing to do in life is to care. And I have yet to come across a greater spiritual teaching than that in all the things that I've studied. And you know what? That is both the path as well as the goal. The path is to be present, is to give your full attention and to be loving. And that's also the goal, because I haven't met any wise teacher who does anything different. Even the wisest masters are themselves living in the moment, giving their full attention to the person or task at hand, and they're very caring and loving. So that's the best spiritual story you'll ever hear. Do you like that?